The latest vision for the redevelopment of Union Square was unveiled to the community recently when the Somerville by Design team presented its neighborhood plan draft. Principal Group Design Director Russell Preston presented highlights of the 164-page report to over 100 residents and city officials.
So this is very much a draft. This is a living document right now. We want your input. As part of the Somerville by Design process, this is a key step to put the plan out there before it's completely cooked and let everyone sort of make sure we're heading in the right direction and filling in some missing pieces. So that's important. We need your feedback. We wanted to just walk you all through the document, and I'll kind of hit the highlights, kind of orient you, explain some things, and then we could do some Q&A. So the plan highlights, what's really important here is not just the physical realm, what is the future of Union Square and the neighborhood, but also what are the numbers associated with that? How many jobs are we creating? And there's a very important balance between commercial growth and residential growth that we have tried to aim for that comes out of Summer Vision. And that's really a 60-40 split between commercial growth and residential growth. This is sort of the bow tie, street network. And you can see here sort of the square, sort of really thinking about how to enhance Sanborn Court. This main intersection at Webster, Washington, Bow, and Somerville, how do we make that really work well for everyone in the neighborhood? Now D1 is an important transition parcel. It has to kind of slope down to meet the neighborhood, sort of hold that street frontage on Washington Street as well as on the main square. But it's also a great parcel for larger format office and commercial development, in addition to a centralized sort of parking facility. Looking at a redevelopment of the site with a number of phases, a number of buildings, a smaller sort of 5-story structure here, a mid-block lane, and then this is a really key opportunity for a library and a community innovation center. This might be a great place to put civic uses and keep them in Union Square. And then moving forward, sort of looking back, this is Prospect Street. There's the post office. And there's D1 there, kind of meeting the plaza space.
My question is about the plan holistically. How will this be implemented? What is the accountability on parts of the city, on developers who will work in the neighborhood, and on residents? What does the enforcement of the plan look like? Is this a requirement or a suggestion? And how will this plan play out in our neighborhood?
The easy question is we don't know. Part of it is this neighborhood plan is an aspirational document. This is supposed to establish a vision, establish a set of aspirational goals and objectives. What in our experience we find is that if it's a strong vision and the community is continuing to have dialogue around it, implementation opportunities bubble up that might not have been conceived of when a plan might have been written.
Well, I think the plans we saw tonight reflect that they've been listening to the feedback, and they've incorporated a lot of very good points that were suggested.
While this is not really the beginning, it's the beginning of another phase, and that we're at the beginning of 20 or 30-year process, and we're watching history being made. We're watching the transformation of a large part of Somerville.
If we can have a model where we're transit-oriented, we're walking, thanks Joe, we're walk and bike oriented, and we're median income, and we're trying to balance jobs and housing. Median income housing doesn't come close to paying for itself. And the more you build, the deeper a fiscal hole you have. So if we can have those jobs catch up and balance the housing, we take away 1/4 of the difference between us and Cambridge and Boston, which could be significant in the services we could deliver.
The full report is available at somervillebydesign.com. Public comment on the draft is being accepted through November 30th. The first of 2 working sessions on a public benefits agreement for Union Square takes place at City Hall tomorrow. The public benefits agreement is a binding contract between the city and the developer US2 that sets out guidelines for affordable housing, local hiring and job development, local business support, and other neighborhood protections. The city has engaged the urban advocacy and research group, LOCUS, to facilitate the negotiations. LOCUS President Chris Lineberger met with residents at the July 28th Union Square Civic Advisory Committee meeting to explain the process.
One is to recognize what how great places evolve. There's a very important role for the public sector. Public sector sets the table. Zoning, infrastructure provision, all sorts of stuff that the public sector has to do before anybody shows up. Another important role is the private sector. Private sector builds 80% of the built environment. Private sector doesn't show up, things don't get built. Look what's happened for the last 50 years. In Somerville, it's kind of been bumping along. But now it's your time. And it starts with making sure that we all understand the various issues that you've been talking about working on for the last number of years, really. I mean, the CAC's been around for a couple of years, but before that, you know, summer vision and all, I mean, you've done some remarkable work. You've done a lot of the heavy lifting. What I'm hoping this process will do is bring it to closure. But taking all that information about the vision, about the infrastructure, about programs that are needed, that needs to make sure that everybody on the CAC and anybody else involved with this process will be up to speed. Works under the assumption that you bring people together, people of goodwill come together, you educate everybody about the same stuff, they all know the same thing, and then you give them what I refer to as the universe of options. That's going to be on day 2, of what the skeleton is of a strategy. So we want decision makers in the room that are able to make decisions about, you know, to make commitments about what they're going to do, and they can credibly volunteer to do things to help make it happen. If you have a lot of people that are just bitching and moaning, you know, it's important to listen, important to hear people's concerns. What we need in the room are people that are going to make things happen.
A 30-member strategic planning task force has been created to negotiate the agreement. The decision-making group includes members of the Civic Advisory Committee, city staff, and community representatives. The meetings are all open to the public.